If UFOs really exist, does that mean we could use the same tech and build the Starship Enterprise exactly like in the show? Let's find out. One little thing before we get started. Please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and leave me a comment down below. Thanks very much. Hi everyone. This is the third part of my ongoing warp drive series in which I discuss not only established accepted physics we already know, but also discuss fringe theories and potential conspiracy theories and eyewitness reports from people claiming to have had insights in supposed extraterrestrial spacecraft and how they work. Although the US government denies to be in the possession of alien spacecrafts, it's the same US government which is now continuously claiming that the hyperinflation they caused by uncontrollably printing money for the last year would be Putin's price hike. So I kind of have doubts on the validity of claims coming from the US government. And so I also consider the potential truth in the claims from people like Bob Lazar. One of the biggest problems when it comes to long-term deep space missions, like let's say to Mars, is the muscle and bone density degeneration of the astronauts. There are concepts like, for instance, using the centrifugal force in order to simulate gravity so that astronauts do not have an unrecoverable degree of loss of such bone and muscle mass. If, however, there would be a mechanism to actually generate those gravity potentials you need to form a warp bubble like described in the Alcubierre and in the sonic white metric. This mechanism could also be used to create something like gravity plating, as used as plot device in Star Trek in order to save production costs while explaining why the crew of the Enterprise are not floating around on the bridge but are walking around like they're on Earth. In the last two videos of this series, I already touched on the law of gravito-electromagnetism and the possibility that supposed aliens, if they would have come here, might be using effects implied by those equations. When we look, for instance, how electromagnetic waves travel through a waveguide, we can observe that the traveling wave has a accompanying electrical field, hence the name electromagnetism. And this electrical field in turn polarizes the surface of the waveguide, which means that you can use, for instance, a multimeter and measure a voltage between 2 points on the surface of the waveguide. If the proper material is being used in combination with gravitational waves, it is to be speculated that the same effect might occur with gravitational waves, only that the polarization in that case is gravitational charge, or in other words, positive and negative potential mass. So building a gravity plating unit would be a really nice test to find out whether you stole the correct materials out of Area 51 in case you have the opportunity. And it might also be what you need in order to get the Nobel Prize in order to finance building the actual Starship Enterprise. Finding out whether it has been the proper material would be really simple, because turning it around and an artificial gravity unit becomes an artificial anti-gravity unit. But yeah, assuming that UFOs and aliens are real, with the tech they use for making the warp drives work, we could actually also create artificial gravity plating like the one depicted in Star Trek. So, check. So, what about the warp nacelles, also known as the warp gondolas? Are they realistic when looking at it in the context of gravitomagnetism and the technology hypothetical UFOs would be using? We know from Star Trek those epic scenes when the Starship Enterprise jumps to warp and disappears in the distance. Is that something which would be possible to build, assuming that this alien tech for using gravitomagnetism exists? When digging through technical drawings of hypothetical warp nacelles from Star Trek, I was surprised to find out that inside those warp nacelles it is actually stacked cyclotrons. So using the material of these flying saucers, if those exist, like the gravitoferromagnetic material for the core in between the cyclotrons and the lining material of the spacecrafts for the shell of the warp nacelle. Those warp nacelles would actually really produce a warp field. Going further, I was even more surprised to find out that the predictions in the show, when they show a diagram of the warp field around the Enterprise, pretty much matches what you would expect from an Enterprise with warp nacelles using gravitomagnetism for generating a warp field. Considering that the warp nacelles are at the lower end of the ship and expand the space behind the ship, while the mass of the ship plus the additional mass potential at the front of the warp nacelle cause a higher gravity valley than its counterpart of negative mass in the back, which expands it, you would have something like an inverted raindrop drilling through space-time. That's exactly also the diagram shown in Star Trek Enterprise. So yes, if aliens would be real and there would be UFOs, if we would have those materials at our disposal, we could actually build a working warp nacelle exactly like in Star Trek. Checks out. So the last detail we have to solve before we can go out into space, explore strange new worlds, seek out new life and new civilizations, and boldly go where no man has gone before, is to prevent cosmic debris from crashing into our ship with superluminal speed while we go with warp 5 to another star system. So however, in reality, the metrics from Sonny White and Alcubierre predict the build-up of Hawking radiation at the event horizon of our warp bubble that will incinerate every little cosmic particle getting in our way. The problem, however, is that this Hawking radiation also will incinerate our target destination if we do not take measures to neutralize it or, well, limit the buildup of such radiation. So in the drawings Bob Lazar provided for his pod model, there is an antenna in the top of the spaceship. So that's basically the front of the spaceship when the spaceship is traveling, and the positive mass well, the positive gravity well side when the warp bubble is being generated. So that's basically like it already looks essentially like the deflector array from the Enterprise. It's basically the same thing. So just that they apparently have use it as a Bussard collector and feed the highly energetic particles back into the plasma of the reactor, which is pretty smart. So man, I want to hang out with some of those grays. But yeah, that's pretty smart, yeah. The problem is not to have a deflector, because that comes naturally with the warp drive, but you can use a deflector array to actually limit the buildup of Hawking radiation at the event horizon and feeding it back into the reactor. It's pretty smart. So that problem also is solved. So yeah, checks out. Deflector array is a go. So that's it for this video. We now know if there would be aliens and there would be UFOs. With the material from which they are made, we could make a real life enterprise, just like in Star Trek, with artificial gravity and warp drive. Anyway, I hope you liked this video. If you did, please give me a thumbs up. Please don't forget to share and subscribe. If you didn't like it, thanks for watching so far through. Please give me at least a thumbs down and tell me why you didn't like the video. And see you all next time. Bye.